Hi, 5th grade. Today we're going to be doing Module 1, Lesson 13, and for this lesson we are going to be dividing decimals. So for the past couple of lessons we have been multiplying decimals, and now we're going to switch it up and move on to division. This lesson, if you know a lot of your basic facts, it should be pretty simple, and we're just going to be taking a look at some problems now and thinking of some different strategies we can use to solve them. So you should be following along in your Lesson 13 notes that I gave you, and you're going to be filling them out along with me throughout this video. Please make sure you have your notes, a pencil, and you are focused on the lesson. Let's get started with our first problem. We have 9/10 divided by 3. Now you might look at this problem and kind of like freak out a little bit because it looks so different, but I'm going to show you two strategies we can use to solve this problem. The first strategy I can use is that I can think of this problem in a different way. Instead of thinking of this problem as a division problem, I can think of it as a multiplication problem. So all of you on your notes have a sentence that says 3 groups of blank is 9/10. What we're going to do is we are going to take this problem, and I basically flip-flopped it so that I can think of it as multiplication. This groups of, remember we can think of groups of as multiplication instead. So I can think of this as 3 times blank tenths is 9/10. Now, you might not know, the units might mess you up a little bit, but you do know that 3 times 3 is 9. The only thing that's changing here is this unit. So 3 groups of, or 3 times 3/10 is 9/10. So that is one way I could find my answer, is by flip-flopping the problem and kind of thinking about it like with multiplication instead. Now another way I can do this is I can show my work on a place value chart. So in this place value chart I have 9/10 and they're being divided by 3. So I'm showing 9/10 in my place value chart with these discs, and I need to break them into 3 equal groups. Now to do that, I will break them up just like this. I want to make sure I have the same amounts of place value discs in each group. Each group has the same amount of discs, so I know I was able to divide them up correctly, and there are no leftovers. So my final answer while using my place value chart is also 3/10, because I look at the inside of one of the groups I created, and I have 1, 2, 3/10. I will then write my answer up here in standard form so I could show you that I have 3/10. Now when you look at this problem, I want you to see that it kind of does just look like 9 divided by 3 equals 3. It's pretty much the same problem. It's just that our place values or values are different right now. So instead of just seeing this as 9 divided by 3 equals 3, I am now thinking of this as 9/10 divided by 3 equals 3/10. My units match on both ends, and my digits are still the same. So your notes right now should be looking like this so far. And we're going to move on to the next problem. And for this next problem, I'm going to move you over here to take you for a trip. We are going to be solving now for 24/100 divided by 4. And think about what this problem looks kind of similar to right now. So we're first going to start off with our sentence and thinking of this as a multiplication problem instead of a division problem. So right now I have 4 groups of blank hundredths is 24 hundredths. So I can think of this groups of as multiplication instead. And I can think of, well, 4 times what is 24 hundredths? Well, I know that 4 times 6 is 24, so I can fill in the blank with the 6. And now I'm left with 6 hundredths. Remember, this unit, hundredths, needs to match the unit of the number I'm trying to get to. So I have 4 groups of 6 hundredths is the same is 24 hundredths. Then I could also show my work in a place value chart. So I am starting with 24 hundredths, and I want to break them into 4 equal groups. So I'm showing you 24 hundredths right now, and I want 4 equal groups of that. So I create 1 group, 2 groups, 3 groups, and then 4 groups of 6 hundredths in each group. So I took my 24 hundredths, I split them into 4 groups, and I made sure that all of my groups had the same amount of dots inside of them. And now I'm left with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 hundredths in each group, and 6 hundredths would be my final answer. I'll write my answer up at the top in standard form, so as a decimal. And my final answer reads as 24 hundredths divided by 4 equals 6 hundredths. Remember, my units are pretty much the same. We're going to be the same on both sides right now. So since I have hundredths over here, I'll have hundredths over here. And you can think of this problem as just 24 divided by 4 is 6. It's just our value has changed. So let's try one more problem that is kind of similar to this one. And so far, your notes should be looking just like this. Oops, just like that. So that's what your notes should be looking like. Pretty much what I read in the board is just like the notes that you have right in front of you as well. So let's move on to the next problem. And for this one, we have 32 thousandths divided by 8. And I'm trying to figure out what that equals. Now for this problem, I don't want to draw all these dots on my place value chart. So I'm just going to think of it as a multiplication problem instead to help myself out. So to do this, I'm going to take this 8, because I'm really like starting in the back. So I will write this as 8 groups of, or multiplication, 8 groups of blank thousandths is 32 thousandths. So I take this part was started in the front and I put it all the way in the back. So it's like I flip-flopped where my numbers were at. You guys already have this sentence written down, so you just need to follow along with me. And now what I just need to think about is 8 times what is 32. And then I'll fill in the blanks and get my units on there. So 8 times what is 32? Well, I know that 8 times 4 is 32. But most importantly, 8 times 4 thousandths is 32 thousandths. So remember, our place values are changing, but the digits look the same. So we have 32 thousandths divided by 8 equals 4 thousandths. And up here, I will need to write this in standard form. So make sure you fill in that spot for your notes. And this is what your paper should be looking like now. And then 5th grade, just keep this in mind, because once you get to your problem set, you're going to see a lot of problems that look just like this. So make sure, if you don't understand this, that you're raising your hand and asking for help. And make sure you're taking good notes so you know how to do this later on. Let's move on to our next problem. This is where we're going to start switching things up a bit. And now we're going to be taking a look at the unit forms of numbers and using that to help us solve more complicated problems. So, for example, you should be looking at number 4 now in your notes. We're going to be looking at 1 5/10 divided by 3. Now, a strategy I can use, because this isn't as easy to solve, what I can do is I could think of what this number 1.5 will look like in unit form. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to break down this number to 15 tenths. Because if you look at this number and you pretend that decimal's not there, do I know how to solve 15 divided by 3? I do, because that's a fact that I know how to do. So I'm going to break down this decimal into unit form so that I'm showing 15 tenths instead of 1, 1, and 5 tenths. And then I can solve this problem in unit form. So instead of saying 1 and 5 tenths divided by 3, I'll say 15 tenths divided by 3. Now 15 tenths divided by 3 is going to equal 5, I'll bring down the units, 5 tenths. Because 15 divided by 3 is 5, and I'll bring down the units. Now that I have my answer in unit form, I'm going to rewrite it as a decimal. So 5 tenths as a decimal or in standard form is just 0.5. And that's all we need to do to solve this problem. So your work so far for this problem, you should be showing me this so far. Oops. You should be showing me this so far in your notebooks. All right, let's move on to the next problem. And for this one, this is where it gets really, really tricky. For this problem, we have 1 and 5 hundredths divided by 5. Now, the last problem that we just did, it kind of just looked like 15 divided by 3, which we just know is 5. So it looks like one of our basic facts. The only thing that changed was the value, which just changed the value of our answer. Now this one, this looks a lot more complicated. It kind of looks like it wants me to solve 105 divided by 5. And that's not a problem I really know off the top of my head. So I'm going to have to break this up into parts that I do know how to solve. So the book and on my notes, we kind of do the work a little bit for you so you know what units you want to break this down into. So in your notes, you're going to see something that says blank tenths divided by 5 plus blank hundredths divided by 5. And we're going to fill in the blanks with these units from this number right here. So if I have 1 and 5 hundredths, I want to see how many tenths I have. So normally I would look at my tenths and I see, oh, I just have 0 tenths. There's really nothing I can do with that. But I can decompose my number and break it into different parts to help me out with this. So if you really take a good close look at this number, you can kind of see a problem you know how to solve. You know how to solve 10 divided by 5. So we're going to decompose this number to show 10 tenths divided by 5. And then I'm going to think about the rest of the number that I have. I'm left with 5 hundredths, and I can solve 5 hundredths divided by 5. So I'm going to squeeze in a 5 hundredths over here, and then I'm going to solve all these different little parts. So over here, I have 10 tenths divided by 5. Right now, I just want you to think of this as 10 divided by 5. 10 divided by 5 is 2, but remember, I want to keep this in unit form for now. So I'm going to be left with 2 tenths. Then I'm going to add, because I still need to add on my hundredths, I'm going to think of this as not just 5 hundredths divided by 5, but just 5 divided by 5. And 5 divided by 5 is just 1 hundredth. Now I have my answer in unit form, but now I want to put it in standard form. So to do this, I just have to look at the units and write the numerals in the correct place value. So if I have 2 tenths, I'll put a 2 in my tenths, and my 100th, I'll just put a 1 in my hundredths place for a final answer of 21 hundredths. So I know this is kind of a lot to follow along with, but your paper should be looking like this. This is what you should have filled in for each section. And we're going to get plenty of practice with decomposing numbers, seeing what we can divide and what we can't divide, and we'll get plenty of practice with this for the next few lessons. So if you don't get it right now, that is totally okay. I know this is kind of a hard concept to follow. So I'm going to erase this and move on to our final problem for today. And this problem is probably our trickiest one yet, but let's see how we do. So right now I have 3 and 15 thousandths divided by 5. Now, when I look at this problem, I want to think about what factors of 5, or what do I see that could be divisible by 5 in this number? If I just pretend the decimal's not there and think about how I could split up numbers, what could be divided by 5? Well, if I look at it, I kind of can see the number 30 if I pretend that decimal's not there. I can do 30 divided by 5. I could also do 15 divided by 5, and that's another fact that I know. So let's work with that. So right now I have 30 tenths, because the 0 is in the tenths place. So I have 30 tenths divided by 5 plus 15 thousandths, because this 5 is in my thousandths place, plus 15 thousandths divided by 5. See, that's 15 thousandths divided by 5. Now what I need to do is I need to solve these little parts and eventually bring it all together to get my final answer. So I have 30 divided by 5. That's my first part. 30 divided by 5 is 6, but it's not just number 6, it's 6 tenths. So I bring down those units. Then I bring down this addition symbol because I have to add on my thousandths now. And I think about what is 15 divided by 5. 15 divided by 5 is 3, but it's not just the number 3, it is 3 thousandths. So I write the unit thousandths with it. And now I can put this all together to get my final answer. So I have to write my final answer in standard form. I have 6 in my tenths. I have nothing in my hundredths, so I put a 0 there. And I'm going to have a 3 in my thousandths, so I put that 3 in my thousandths place for a final answer of 603 thousandths. Now, again, this is not a fact that you normally know. 3 and 15 thousandths divided by 5. It's not a fact you normally know or can easily do off the top of your head, at least at first. The reason why we do these steps is because we want to break apart these numbers into facts that we do know how to solve to help us out to easily get our answer without having to use a calculator or long division. And that is why we use this strategy. So what you are going to do right now is you're going to try the You Try section at the bottom of this page. So you're going to have a problem that is similar to the ones on front where you use the sentence. And then you have 2 other problems that are like these where you have to decompose your number. Please let me know when you are done with these You Try problems and I will check your answers and then you'll move on to the problem sets. If you are confused, please make sure you let me know and we can do a small group to help you out. Great job today and good luck.